luckily for us, we went through a dress rehearsal. So this is the first time I'm talking about this area of the tradition. So the dress rehearsal was actually very helpful. I spoke to the girls because what I'm going to be speaking about is slightly different from what you read in the texts and so on. This is a kind of a, I would say, reconnecting with the Shilpa Shastras at one level, and also the inner yoga unfolding that I have been through in my own life. So it's partially related to the chakras also. All right. But please bear with me. It's still very experimental. I don't know whether I would like to say this is it. I think there's a lot more work that has to be done with it. So as all of you know, the Navaratri has three distinct versions. One is, of course, the North India, one in Central India, where it's the confrontation between Rama and Ravana. That is the whole Ravana Samhara, the visuals that they enact and so on. Then the second one is that you divide it into three days. And the first three is considered to be Durga, second three is Mahalakshmi, and the third three is supposed to be Mahasaraswati. Those of you who know the storyline that is part of your Devi Mahatmyam, there is a very interesting version of the Devi Mahatmyam, which I will tell you before we go into the details. This is a version that is given by my teacher, who is a tantric in Kerala. He says that the whole Devi Mahatmyam is about the awakening of the individual. And there is a theory that all human beings, all creation is actually Prakriti, which means everybody is female. There is no creation that is masculine. There is only one male, and that is Purusha. Everything else is a manifestation of Prakriti. So all of us are feminine. The feminine in our consciousness, in our intent, in our location in the larger cosmic state. So the individual who is ready to walk the spiritual path, whom we'll call a sadhaka. This sadhaka, when he or she is ready, let's just say she, because we're all she, when she is ready to awaken to the spiritual path, the whole story starts with the Shumbha and Madhu and Kaitaba. So Madhu and Kaitaba are actually coming out of the ears of Mahavishnu. In this, Mahavishnu is the Purusha. He is in a state of Yoga Nidra. And when Brahma is attacked by Madhu and Kaitaba, who are actually the impurities coming out of the ears of Mahavishnu. So in this, we have to look at it as a lot of things that each of us is holding, which doesn't belong to us from our own past, particularly from our childhood. Many things which have been pushed on to us because of the context, which doesn't belong to us. And we were voiceless at that time, vulnerable and voiceless, to prevent it from entering into us. And then it became a part of us, and we didn't know that it didn't belong to us. So these are impurities. And they are actually the heard sound, which is held within us. So when this asuric tendency of the past catches up, then the only way is to awaken Mahamaya or Mahakali. She is the first. Sometimes you can also call her Durga. She has to awaken, and she's a very tough mother. She says to you, get up and start walking. Enough of your sleep. So you're coming out of not a sattva nidra, but you're coming out of a tamasa nidra. And then after you have awakened, you look around and say, hey, how am I going to support myself? because I have now decided to walk the spiritual path, which means I'm not concerned about income, my profession, nothing. I'm only concerned about finding that space which I was born for. And then apparently Mahalakshmi comes to you. She says, here is what you need for walking this path. She says to you, that will be taken care of.
Power on.
And Maha Saraswati also comes to you and says, this is the knowledge you need.
Akka, you're on mute.
Oh, once again, I was muted. Okay. So the Mahalakshmi and Mahasaraswati, what do they actually stand for? Stands for the wherewithal that you need. And this wherewithal, which is your professional need, your personal need, your home, your partner, this, that, and the other, and the knowledge that you need. You can't just walk into the spiritual path with knowing nothing. You start, of course, being an empty vessel, but you also need some knowledge. Apparently, both these mothers who want you to walk this path reach out to you through the teachers, through the job, through the task, through the wherewithal, so that you can walk this path. And then you're walking on the path, you're refining yourself, you're doing your yogic practice, all the rest of it. But where is it going? What is the final resting place for this? For that, you have to search, because Maheshwari will not come to you. She is also known as Bhavatarini. She is awaiting on the banks of the river of Samsara with a boat, ready to take you across. But you have to make the effort after having awakened, after using the knowledge, after having received the gifts of your wealth and your prosperity. You have to find Maheshwari, and then she will take you across the river of Samsara to a state of moksha or release. This is the interpretation of the Devi Mahatmyam that my teacher has given, which I think is a fabulous interpretation, because finally it's not some story out there. It is my journey. Okay? How am I going to take up this journey? So then, in the Devi Mahatmyam also, the Nava Durga is talked about. And this Nava Durga, once again, we are not just looking at their manifestation, their form, their color, the ayudhas that they are holding. We're not just looking at it. We are saying they actually are located in our own body. Okay? So the first one is Shaila Putri. All of them are actually the various stages in the life of Parvati. So this is the child Parvati, full of wonder, joyous, celebrating, happy like a child. Okay? And in her dreaming self, she's saying, I must attain this wonderful human called Shiva. That's her only desire. She desires him. And this is the child self within us, which is located in our Mooladhara. Okay. And she is the little daughter of Himavan, who is the joy of his life. Right? Then it is said that she is white, totally white, and this white is not the color of the skin. We are talking about an innocence, completely untouched. Okay. And then she has 3 eyes, and the texts are saying they are very contented eyes. She's very happy with herself as she is, as children are usually. And she is wearing red and pink clothes. She has only 2 arms, and she's seated on a bull. The 2 arms have a trishula in one, and the other side is a lotus. And you have to understand what does a Trishula mean, because again and again you'll see the Trishula coming in the narrative. Trishulam usually is the three gunas, one version. The second version is that it has three Shakti. Arani, Janani, and Rodayitri. These are supposed to be the three Shaktis that it contains. One of them is for, Arani is for creation. Janani is for creation. Arani is for destruction. And Rodayitri is for protection. Okay. So this she has in one hand, and she's holding a lotus on the other. Lotus has many meanings. The white lotus, the pink lotus, and the blue lotus. Invariably, it means wealth, contentment. It also means a state of lack of desire, desirelessness. So this is a child who is without any protection. She's completely open. Okay. The only desire she has is for Shiva. Then you come to Brahmacharini. As the word denotes, this is the ascetic Parvati. Just desiring as a child was not enough. Now she's saying, I'm going to make myself worthy. I shall go into asceticism. So she's supposed to have gone into very, very powerful penance to make herself worthy of Shiva. So she becomes emaciated. She's only wearing a Rudraksha mala. And she's holding one Rudraksha in the hand. And she's also holding a Kamandalu in the other. And Kamandalu usually means